Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Nina, and I'm the Associate Director of the Tulane Alumni Career Professional Development Office. So, just a few housekeeping things before I hand it off to Allison. Please introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. It's always fun to kind of see the different corners of the country and the world where people join. But just a heads up that this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I will drop that link in the chat after this. And we have over like 70 past sessions recorded and uploaded there. So if you would like to be notified about when new recordings are uploaded, just make sure to subscribe to our channel. Okay, but our topic today is lessons from burnout to career transition, excuse me. We have Alison Midollo leading us in today's session. And if you guys have questions throughout, you can just put them in the chat and then we'll circle back to them at the end when we have a little Q&A. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Alison now so that she can introduce herself. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Nina. Hi, everyone. So great to meet all of you. My name is Alison Midollo. I graduated from Tulane in 2016, and I'm really excited to be here today and share today's presentation titled The Healing Journey, Lessons from Burnout to Career Transformation. Oh, okay. So a little bit of overview of kind of where we're going to go today in this presentation. I'm going to talk about and give a little background around myself. Those are my initials. I call myself AM, and give a little bit of timeline of what my life career has looked like since graduating Tulane and my time at Tulane. And then specifically, we're going to go into understanding stress and the mind-body connection, breaking free from the cycle of burnout, reducing stress holistically, some techniques and tools that you can do that with, and then moving through some actual things that you can do in real time right now to assess your stressors, create more balance in your life, talk through some integration strategies for self-care that's sustainable, and then ways you can stay in touch and get continued support. So I encourage you to be really engaged today. You can relax and listen. You can also ask questions, as Nina mentioned. We will have time for Q&A in the end of the presentation. And if you have a journal handy, I recommend grabbing it, something to write with, or pulling up a blank document to take notes on. There's gonna be a lot of juicy things that you can walk away with today, hopefully, that you can start integrating and practicing right now in real time, as well as after this presentation. So a little bit about me and my background. I graduated, like I mentioned, from Tulane, from the business school in 2016. I majored in marketing and management. I minored in psychology. And when I graduated, I moved back to New York City. So I was born and raised in New York and knew I wanted to work and live back in New York City post grad. And I really dreamed of having a career in fashion. And so that was my trajectory when I left school, and began my career in fashion. And my experience in those 3 years was very similar to, I always refer to the movie A Devil Wears Prada, if you're familiar with that movie. That was kind of how I started my career and what my life really looked like on a day-to-day basis. It was a really high-paced environment, lots to do all the time. And I was really excited about all of the things that I was doing. I loved what I was doing. I was a sales assistant at the time and supported a few luxury brands in sharing their lines, selling their lines to wholesalers and major retailers. So I loved a lot of aspects of what I was doing. However, over those 3 years, very quickly, it took a very, very high toll on my mental health, my overall health, my physical health in ways that I was not anticipating. While starting to also manage my own stress, take care of myself, and it really came to a breaking point where I had to make this decision to keep going at this rate where my health was on a decline, um, or make a really hard decision and a really big change. So I skip a lot of details, but after experiencing that period of burnout, I did leave my job in career in fashion and started to pivot my career into the wellness space. During all of that time and during the burnout, I was practicing yoga pretty frequently, which started at my time at Tulane, and found so much hope and healing in my yoga practice. And so I was very interested in learning more about the yoga practice, really the mind body connection, and became very fascinated by um, the whole world of healing and the holistic approach to healing. And so that led me to in 2019, when I left my full time job in fashion to launch my own yoga business, coaching business. I went back to school, studied through the Integrative Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and got a coaching certification. So I was able to kind of combine my expertise as a yoga teacher and coaching into programs and support groups. So that time was right before the pandemic, where I built an online community and started to do a lot of group programs, lead retreats, workshops. And during that pivot of COVID, I moved to San Diego, started to really focus on more personal healing and recovery that I experienced at the height of my burnout, which took a really big toll and has been honestly a journey of recovery ever since. So every day I am in recovery of that and practicing all the things that I'm about to share with you. Um, by 2023, I faced a really unexpected financial hardship in my personal life and professional life. And that led me to return back to the East Coast, back to New York City. And over the last year and a half, I have been able to revive my business, re enter fashion in ways I didn't expect, embrace other areas of my skill set, and return to continuing education for yoga, which has led me here today to really embody all the different things that I love that have completely transformed my career and made, yeah, just of a very passion filled lifestyle, I would say. So what I wanted to bring to today's session is really some education and awareness around stress, the stress response, the mind body connection, and moving into just all of the lessons that I learned from my burnout and how I truly have been able to heal from, break free from the cycle of burnout and really recover myself, my mind, my body, and make this a lifestyle that is truly possible with bringing all of the things that I love back into my life in a career. So, an overview that there are two types of stress, right? Positive stress, negative stress. And stress is a very normal reaction to events. I have exciting events here, but maybe not, they're not always exciting. And so we are hardwired for our stress response. It's our survival technique. It's built into our body as a means of protection. And that's really important. So when triggers arise, have this activation in our fight or flight response. So that is known as our sympathetic nervous system. And that mobilizes you to take action, respond, um, and do what you need to survive and protect yourself. And so the issue with that is that the body doesn't know the difference between a bear chasing you, a life threatening situation, or a work related stressor, or even a relationship related stressor, a financial stressor, right? So your body's response is perfectly healthy when there's a real emergency to be activated and be in that survival state. But when you constantly get exposed to that state and your body doesn't know how to manage it, come down from it, down regulate, and you're always experiencing these high stressors, over time you'll eventually experience burnout, and then maybe prolonged burnout, chronic burnout, and then that will give you a lot of symptoms, like it did for me. So, a little bit deeper of what this looks like. There are three stages to the stress response. So, the first stage is the alarm stage. So, this is when you experience that stressor and you might notice a shift in your pulse or in your breathing, in your blood pressure. You might sweat. You might experience a headache, right? There are different ways that our bodies physiologically respond to that onset of stress. So that's the initial stage that happens. And then you move into the adaptive resistance stage. So that's the second stage of the stress response. And that's where these stressors become so repetitive that the body gets used to and adapts to being in that prolonged state. So it never really comes out of the survival mode, it stays in the survival mode. And this diagram here kind of shows all different parts of the body and what symptoms might occur when that happens. Aches and pains, um, increased blood pressure, you might experience increased fat or a weight gain or a weight loss, mood issues, really having trouble regulating all of the emotions that humans are meant to experience, that just become very overwhelming. Brain fog is a huge one that I hear about when I work with clients. Lower bone density, cramps and tightness, a lot of tension, and maybe even pain in the body. And so I share all of that to also normalize that this happens to so many of us. And it's really important to help identify and start to become aware of and familiar with your symptoms and what your stress response, how that translates in your body to help you further along start to combat that stress. And so when that happens and that continues to happen again, if it persists, then you move into the exhaustion stage. So that's where you see down here, you just completely kind of dip and you enter that panic zone, that breakdown, burnout period. And you're just in full exhaustion. So that's where I was at the point in my career, in my job, when I was really at that breaking point of I need to make a decision and I need to make a change that honors my health at this point, because I was experiencing for over a year actually this exhaustion stage. I didn't have the language or the knowledge and education really around this at the time, but when I saw this graph it made a lot of sense to me that this is what was happening over time, for me in my job. And then when I started to study this, because then I moved into doing a yoga training, really understanding the mind body connection, and really just getting so curious for my own healing and my own personal benefit of what was really happening in my body internally. I really learned a few things. And so, first, I learned about we have this ability to go from a fight or flight response to a rest and digest response. So, there's another part of our nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system. So, that's the opposite of your fight or flight. That's your rest or digest response. So, that's really what we come back to when we feel grounded, when we feel calm, when we have mental clarity, when our digestion's working, right? So we can all relate to or probably name some moments in our lives and in our experiences where our bodies are in that rest and digest place. And so that's critical for our well being and our healing to really focus on shifting from fight or flight back into rest and digest and meeting your body where it is and trying to help your body with support and tools to come back into that state, into that parasympathetic state, that calm, that grounded rest and digest space. And so, a lot of things that really started to help me understand this or experience this was one, slowing down and increasing my self awareness to really interrupt these toxic patterns of stress and overproductivity. And really, what led to breaking free from this cycle of burnout and kind of like being in that spiral and that hamster wheel, if you will, was really shifting holistically and creating a whole lifestyle that was different than what I was practicing or previously doing. So, a commitment to lifelong recovery, healing that focused on reconnection, really reconnecting my mind and body from severe disconnection, building resilience and tolerance for stress in the nervous system. And like I said, creating a lifestyle to support self care. So, a huge emphasis on restoring safety back into my body, and focusing heavily on presence internally and externally. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that is, what that looks like. But so this diagram here is really just really what happens when we try to start to balance out. If we're heavily high in stress, we don't necessarily need to move all the way to the other side right away. It's going to take a while to find that harmony and that rebalance. And it's obviously not linear. So, a little bit about reducing stress, I want to emphasize holistically. So, what really helped me and what I teach to my students and to my clients is starting to look at self care from a very holistic lens. So, you have physical needs, mental needs, emotional needs, spiritual needs. And all of that contributes to your stress levels. When we have a lot of high unmet needs, that contributes to a really high state of stress because the body needs to stay in survival mode. Right. So, creating more of a focus on, okay, let me start to understand what my physical needs are that are not being met. Drinking water, getting sleep, moving the body, getting sunlight, your mental needs, your emotional needs, your spiritual needs, really kind of connecting to yourself, understanding who you are, what you love, what lights you up, things like that. And then really redefining self-care to simplifying that all it is meeting yourself where you are in the moment and getting your needs met in the moment, giving yourself what you need. So that's a tagline I use all the time with my clients. We're meeting ourselves where we are and we're giving ourselves what we need. I think a lot of the noise in the wellness industry right now is this laundry list of self-care things, but then we become so focused on the external things and the checklist of self-care, and it becomes very similar to the checklist of the work things that we have to do or the life things that we have to do. But if we're not focused on the actual needs that we're meeting and what the body is needing, we can stay really disconnected and in a high state of stress, even if we're quote unquote practicing a lot of self care. So I experienced a lot of that in the beginning where I just started doing all of the things to better myself, but I was still in a really high state of stress. So it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of patience with yourself. But I found that simplifying and redefining the definition of self-care from the get-go is really helpful to be that like guiding compass for you. Then there's a huge practice that connects to the emotional piece of leaning into your feelings and actually feeling your stress, feeling your overwhelm and your exhaustion, and having support to process that. When you're at the point of burnout, it is extremely overwhelming. A lot of this stuff is not accessible to you in those moments. You're in a high state of stress, you're in high fight or flight, and your system is just in complete shutdown. um, and for me, it was really starting to share with people that this is what I was feeling and experiencing, and that I was needing help and needing support. And so, I, over the last 9 years, have really been teaching myself the language of feelings, identifying feelings in therapy, in groups, in various other support spaces to help myself actually process the true stress that was happening in my experience. Some other things that really reduce stress when you practice them over time is this concept of resourcing and connecting to safety. So if you think about being in a high state of stress and the body being in a survival state or survival mode, it thinks that there is real time danger. And like I said before, that the issue is not that we're in the high state of stress, it's that the body, the mind, the brain doesn't know the difference that the work email from your boss is not a bear or tiger chasing you. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of discipline and a lot of slowness to come back to practices and things that can help you reconnect to the present moment, which is where you can access safety. So maybe noticing that you're in the room, what's going on in the room, is there any actual danger or threat in your immediate environment? Can you connect to your breath, feel your breath, experience your breath? So yoga is a huge practice that has so many benefits to really help you anchor into resourcing and reconnecting to safety. That's that feeling and that somatic experience of being grounded, of feeling grounded. It's what we're going for is safety in the body, to let the brain know, communicate to the brain that there's no predator right here in the immediate moment, but to also not bypass that's the experience physiologically, that there are ways that we can remind ourselves to do that more intentionally. So like I said, practicing calming activities, meditation, light movement, walking is amazing, being outside, um, yoga, tai chi, focusing on reconnecting to the breath, like I mentioned. So these are just lists of things that you can start to work on. Other things is really focusing on your environment. So your work environment, your living space, making sure it's clean, and it feels comfortable. A lot of times, adding things to your environment, opening the window, letting in fresh air, maybe lighting a candle. I have a weighted blanket on my lap right now. Like, there are things that I've brought into my life that have just surrounded me all day to help me feel that sense of grounding and calm and safety. Using a schedule or a planner to track all the things going on. A lot of times it just like lives in our mind until we write it down and get organized and create systems for ourselves, prioritizing tasks, focusing on one thing at a time, right? When we're in that high state of stress, it's like everything feels so important and urgent. But having maybe help, writing down your priorities so you can focus on one thing at a time. There's the Pomodoro method, things like that that you can also, use. Delegating tasks wherever possible, practicing setting boundaries in work, in relationships, and overall just starting to move at a slower pace, taking breaks and scheduling rest where you can. I've had a mentor use the term finding tiny moments of peace or tiny moments of rest, and that's really resonated with me, because coming out of burnout, healing burnout, really breaking free from that cycle of burnout, like I said, it really does take time. It takes a lot of slowness and a lot of gentleness and patience as well. So, where do we begin? When we are really kind of starting to look at the whole picture, like we were just talking about, it can be really overwhelming to really even identify in your life what is the primary stressor, what area needs your most attention. So there's a really great tool that I wanted to share with all of you today. I call it this is the wheel of zest life. And so there's all different slices here. There's 12 different categories that are just all different, highlight all different areas of life. And so if you have a journal and you'd like to try this, this is a really great tech tool that I give with all my clients to do check-ins and assessments. So we're just looking at, without judgment, without making meaning of it, where are you at right now? So how it works is you can use the circle provided on the left side. You can draw a circle in your journal or in your page, divide it into 12 sections. These are all of the different areas of life. We've got creativity, finances, career, education, health, physical activity, home cooking, home environment, relationships, our social life, our joy, spirituality. And so you're going to eventually place a dot into each slice and assess whether you are feeling very highly fulfilled or lowly fulfilled in that area of your life right now in this moment. And so on the right side, you kind of see the example of placing a dot. If it's towards the outer edge of the circle, that means you're feeling more fulfillment, a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, maybe from that area of your life. It feels really balanced. And maybe if it's not so much, if you're feeling really disconnected or dissatisfied, you place your dot closer towards the center. And by the end, after you assess all 12 areas, you'll connect your dots. And so you'll get to see very visually what area of life, um, is maybe indicating, you know, dissatisfaction, and maybe calling you for more balance, more intention, more focus. And so this is a really great, I share this as a starting point when we can be in a lot of overwhelm and really unsure where to go next. I always encourage my students and my clients to start with this tool. and just identify the areas of balance, because it's also important to identify what really is maybe life giving for you right now and supporting you and carrying you through or bringing your stress levels already down. And then identify the areas of imbalance. And then from there, you are going to want to set intention and work on and focus what maybe feels most imbalanced for you. Um, and so I always emphasize this, the yoga teacher in me has learned so much about the intention setting practice. And I have found over the years the most powerful thing that I can do for myself is set intention when I go to show up for something, especially self-care, my stress, and creating more balance, harmony, and happiness in my life and joy in my life. And so, really identifying, maybe you take that area of imbalance that you rated maybe a little lower than the other areas, and you bring a focus to an intention to adding more self care in that area. And that could just be setting an intention for self care in general, or maybe it's more specific. But the intention is really to anchor you and ground you in a purpose and a focus and your why. An intention is something that is a little different than a goal. A goal can be more measurable, a goal can be more external. So intentions pair very well with goals, but I even before setting goals, I always guide my students and clients to set intentions. And so then you want to think about what it is that you're already doing that's working for you and what is it that you want to add more of? So, in that area of imbalance, what is it that would bring you to get curious? Maybe a little higher marker in that area, and stack that with self care that you're already doing, that you're already showing up for. So, for example, I have a client who's already. I don't have time for myself. I'm not really doing much, so I challenge that. I ask, are you brushing your teeth? What are you doing in the morning before you go to work? Like, are you getting in the shower? What is it that you're already doing? Start to see that as self care, because when we bring more intentionality and mindfulness into what we're already doing, that's the first big moment that we can start to create stress relief and shift for ourselves, is because we're bringing more mindfulness and presence to what it is that we're already doing. And then if you want to add on to that, that's where I call it a self care stack. If you ever read the Atomic Habits by James Clear, he has the term habit stacking. It's the same exact thing. I just kind of reframed it to self care stacking. Um, and so, maybe what you're wanting to do more of, you stack it on to right when you're brushing your teeth or after you're brushing your teeth, or the commute that you have to work, or whatever it is that you're already routinely in the habit of doing, bringing more intention, self-care to doing that, whatever that area of imbalance is for you that you want to focus on. And then bringing a bigger emphasis to the practice is just showing up and being repetitive in your patterning and in your behaviors to do the thing. That's where it becomes a goal. And so the next slide, I'll have a tracking tool that you can also, utilize. And it's been really powerful for me to do this myself. This was when I really started to get on track and get serious about the things that I wanted to do for myself every day. I journaled about it and I created a little guide for myself and accountability for myself in my journal. So I'll share that with you in a moment. But the other thing that also really helped me integrate my new self care and really be habitual and ritual with the things that I wanted to do for myself was to also be in a constant practice of reflection. And so coming back to myself at the end of the day, at the end of the week, once a month, to just take an honest inventory, return to that self care, that stress wheel assessment, and do it again. Okay, after a week, where am I now? Or after a month, where am I now? So bringing yourself in a state of reflection and coming back to what you said you were going to do, what you set intention for, and to notice and to see what has changed. And then you can assess again what's really working, what did you notice worked, what is not working for you, and understanding why what's working is working and what's not working, why it's not working. So it's a lot of inner inquiry. And again, yoga is definitely a discipline and a tool and a practice that brings you into that state of deeper reflection and inwardness to contemplate that. Like I said before, bringing in this more gentle, softer, more self compassion to really, really, really deeply see, acknowledge, and understand and have empathy for your own stress and how you even got to where you got. Right? It took a lot of work for me to understand why I even arrived at this breakdown, burnout, panic mode point. It wasn't the moment that I arrived there. Like, what happened that led up to that moment? What can I learn from it? What can I practice differently? Again, it took a lot of support and a lot of reflection to do that. But one of the most powerful tools I ever learned was self compassion through that process. And that has been a game changer. So, in moments that I still get very triggered and I'm in that survival state, and I know there's no immediate threat or danger, but my body and my brain are still reacting to it as if I am, that's when I know to add in more compassion. And I can't emphasize the last one enough, but having support or finding support, community, and accountability. This is the type of work that you cannot do alone. You should not do alone. And there are infinite resources out there available. When I first started out, it was just me, myself, and I, like looking for these spaces, these community spaces, the teachers, the mentors, the therapists. Um, and the accountability to really make these changes and kind of help me as I stumbled to get back up again. But they're there. And it's also why I shifted into the career that I currently am in, because I believe in the power of this work so deeply and have seen such a change in my own self and all of the others that I work with. And so having support and having community can be so game changer. Coming out of survival mode. We are so hardwired as humans for connection. And so, not just having connection with ourselves, but connection with others is really powerful and important to also just know you're simply not alone. And when you are in a really high state of stress, it can feel really isolating and like you're alone. I left 3 hashtags down here as well. These are kind of things that I just like my mantras on repeat are slowing down, focusing on self-care. I call it squeezing the day. A lot of my branding and my programs are around squeezing stress away, squeezing in self-care, the wheel of zest life. It's this idea that it's there for us, when life gives you lemons, right? That expression. So I pull that from all my programs. So this is the tracking tool that I was talking about. I like to share this little fact too, that people who write down their goals or their intentions are 42% more likely to achieve them than those who don't. So just by simply writing something down, you're almost half as likely to do it, right? That's a really powerful, important thing to realize. If you can do that for yourself, you're already that much further along to doing it, to showing up for it. So setting this up is how it looks. Is you would write the self-care habit, ritual thing that you want to start implementing and integrating, that is going to support you. And then at the beginning of the week, you want to set a goal. How many days a week do you want to practice that? So I have this example of a breathing exercise, 4-7-8 breathing, or a walk outside. I wanted to do that breathing exercise once every day for the week. I wanted to go outside on a long walk for 3 days. And then as the week goes on, you track your progress. I have clients print this out, put it on their fridge or somewhere that they're going to always be seeing it. And it really is powerful to helping you track your progress, and see what happens, and even test the idea. If I write it down, am I more likely to do it? Really just trying that on. So this is how you can set that up and how it would look like in your journal. I'm going to be sharing a workbook with Nina at the end, so she can send it in the follow-up email, and it'll walk you step by step how to actually do this, and give you a template for it. So if you're interested in this, I prepared some documents for you all to walk away with as well. And I love this quote. First, it is an intention, then a habit, then a practice, then second nature, then it is simply who you are. So I have been practicing month after month after month since I believe I want to say 2017. This practice of intention setting, like I'm talking about, every single month I will sit with my journal for an hour. I will reflect and I will look at, what's not working, what's working, and I will set a new intention and I will really bring focus to an area of my life. And that is how sustainably, holistically, over time, I have really been able to slowly, I emphasize slowly, break the cycle of burnout in a way that has been extremely sustainable, not because the recovery has been perfect and I never fall back into old habits or patterns again, but because I consistently show up for these types of practices and I utilize and lean into these tools. So that leads me to just where all the things that I do today and have created. I've created a whole resource library of stress relief and self-care support resources, programs, online workshops, newsletters, a podcast, a yoga YouTube channel, group coaching programs, healing sessions, like you name it, I'm doing it. And I absolutely love doing all of this. Um, and so these are ways to stay in touch and learn more about the resources and things that I do and I offer. In addition to the Instagram that I'm always active on and sharing support on, my email, and my website. My website is where you can find a lot of these things. Sign up for my newsletter. So I actively do virtual intention setting workshops where I guide journal prompts every single month. So we just really unpack the intention setting process. I have a YouTube channel that's free. The podcast recordings have really juicy episodes that are on my website. And I'm running my next group coaching program called Squeeze Stress Away, starting May 1st. I do retreats and individual sessions. So that's just kind of an overview of what all of the work and things have really led up to and how they've gotten to where they've gotten, how I've gotten to where I've gotten. And today I also emphasize that I am just as human as you are. I experience just as much stress as you do. I've been through a lot over the last 9 years since graduating, and I've learned so much. And if there's anything that I feel like I'm here to do is to instill and inspire that hope and resilience is just so possible throughout this journey and through navigating really hard times, uncertain times. We're definitely collectively in a really hard moment, and I think stress levels are and burnout is at an all-time high. It makes a lot of sense, and I think I would love to see just more accessibility to a lot of this support and a lot of this education and knowledge and awareness. So I'm going to slow down with slides and presentations and things, and open it up for some questions. I'm curious if I know that was a lot of information, a lot of support. Yeah, thanks, Nina. I know you're monitoring the chat, so I'm curious if anyone has any specific questions or wants me to repeat anything. Um,
Yeah, we actually did get one question that was sent directly to me.
okay.
What's your go-to thing that you do when you're really struggling with practicing self-care? Like when you can't focus and get to that place, do you have a specific habit that you use to get yourself to that place?
Yes, great question. Happens all the time. Right now, I say right now because I feel like it's always ever changing. Right now, it's getting outside. Like if like the one thing I can do is just get myself outside, and if I can't do that, at least open the window and like really sit next to some fresh air. Um, I think that is one of the most helpful things I can do to support regulating my nervous system when I'm really, really, really struggling. Because sometimes it feels way too far away to get to the yoga mat, to do a meditation. Like stress might be too high to even do an embodiment practice, right? Because what you're doing in yoga meditation is you're bringing all your energy back into the body. if you're too overwhelmed, that might be unsafe for you. So I would encourage you to ask yourself what feels like the most safe, best next thing that you can do. For me right now, it's getting outside. Um, in a way that just, yeah, puts me in nature, puts me in sunlight and just some fresh air, tuning into like hearing the birds or bringing that five sense awareness back into play, I would say, outside.
Awesome. Okay, I love that. I also have another question, just kind of about balancing like physical and kind of mental health.
Yes.
What do you like? Do you have any tips for if, you feel like you need to get to the gym or to physical therapy or something like that for your own physical health, but it's almost like it's at the toll of your mental health, if that makes sense. And obviously they're linked, but do you have any tips on how to either manage that or how to just go about dealing with that?
Yes, great question. It is linked, absolutely. The first thing is like writing it down, putting it on your calendar. If our self-care and our the way that we need to take care of ourselves is not on our schedule, the way that, a meeting with our bosses or all of the other work and appointments that we have, that makes a huge difference. So I started to like forecast my week or put blocks of self-care into my week before the week even happened. Um, and that was just kind of to help me just even if I wasn't going to maybe do it, it was there, and that was like the way that I was going to start doing that was, I don't know, the ideal version of what I wanted it to look like. That's what my schedule would look like, because I also think it's important. A lot of people I work with are stuck in the mentality of I don't have the time, and I so validate that and have been there, and we all have the same amount of time. So it's how bad do you want to do it, right? It takes a lot of inner discipline, but the first thing is to start putting stuff on your calendar. The second thing with really balancing physical and mental health, it's really delicate. And so that's why I like to simplify and emphasize meeting yourself where you are and giving yourself what you need in that moment to moment. So maybe it's not always like hour at the gym every single day, even though we know all the great benefits of the gym. Like what could be, even there was a moment where I was working with my therapist and I was just like, an hour workout or an hour of movement is just too far away from where I am right now. So I have a set of weights that sit next to a yoga mat in the corner of my room, and it's like, can I set a timer for 5 minutes and do that instead? So it's finding more simplified things to do that get you the same result. Because lifting weights in my room that are like, for a few minutes actually has the same effect on me. But it's about kind of tricking yourself, because you're always going to give yourself the excuse of you don't have the time. But when you start to prove yourself that you do and you can do it in between things, it's kind of like hijacking that a little bit and building resilience. It's a muscle. Self-care, I say, is a muscle. So I love the gym analogy, because when you go to the gym for the first time, you're not walking over to the squat rack and lifting an insane amount of pounds of weight. You're going to start really small. You're maybe going to start with like no weights and using your body weight, right? So I always think about my self-care is a muscle, and I'm starting from where I'm starting from, and I have to build that muscle, and I have to grow there, and I have to get there, and I'm not immediately going to be there. It takes a lot of like, heavy lifting, metaphorically. So how can you think about what the benefit is of you going to the gym and showing up for the things that you ideally want to do, and what are other smaller ways that you can start to do that?
Awesome. Thanks, Alison. That's great.
Yeah.
We got another question in the chat. Do you have any tips on moving forward after a difficult interaction with someone who isn't going to apologize? I'm trying to do the let them way of thinking, like they aren't going to apologize, but I keep ruminating on the interaction.
Yeah, that's really tough. I've been there. So, I mean, the biggest thing is coming back to this idea of really giving yourself what you need, meeting yourself where you are, and just taking a moment to slow down, like maybe you need to be the one to acknowledge, your hurt feelings or how you're feeling, or identify how you're feeling, maybe getting support to help identify that. There's another tool I didn't share, but the feelings wheel, you can Google it. That is a huge tool that helped me start to really be more emotionally intelligent, like literate of what it is that I'm experiencing. Journaling is a really great way that I think in moments where I'm not going to get that apology or what I need from that person, what is it that I need from me? Through a lot of the holistic work, there is IFS, or internal family systems. So it dives into parts work and speaking to the fact that we have, we are an adult, we have the adult self, but we also have the inner child. So we have a younger self that has a lot of needs that are needing to be met, and so maybe there is some way that you can connect with that younger part of you that you can help meet that need without that other person. But that might take some journaling work, that might take working with support to really uncover what that truly is. But I think the most important thing is acceptance, and being where you are, and giving yourself what you need moment to moment. Yeah, I'm seeing accepting that the person is less mature than you expect, and acknowledge your disappointment in their lack of apology. Absolutely. Validate yourself. Give yourself what you really want and need from that person. And I think there's a lot of power and self-care in starting to give ourselves what we are expecting and needing from other people. There's nothing wrong with having those needs and expectations, and notice if you're giving your power away or your energy away, and you're ruminating in that, when you have power and control over something in your immediate internal environment that you can kind of respond to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alison. That's very insightful. I right now I don't think we have any more questions unless anybody like has anything and wants to throw it in the chat. But I will be in all of your emails after this. Maggie, you just unmuted yourself. Did you have a question or was that on accident?
Yeah, I have a question because I'm in total burnout. I was a high school teacher for 22 years. And when you were talking about like those little moments of peace and little moments of taking care of yourself, it doesn't exist for a teacher because you're teaching, the bell rings, they have to be outside to accept everybody else in. And I loved it for a very long time, but I just got to this point where I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I quit 2 jobs in 3 months. I realized I can't do this. I'm out of work now and I'm so stressed out. I don't even know where to begin with all this. I mean, I'm stressed out being here and listening to you. So I don't even know where to begin.
Thank you for sharing, Maggie. I really I hear you, and um I feel like I have, in my own first job, like I've experienced that there's just no time, and not knowing where to begin. I've actually worked with many teachers before, so I, from a client perspective, know what it's like to not have that time. Like I hear you, and I'm not here to invalidate that. And so um I think being where you are is really difficult and hard, because it sounds like you're just really exhausted, and really stressed out. Um, and seeing if you can start to, I don't know if there's like support in your immediate network, or people that you can just start to kind of talk to and lean on. But very slowly, give yourself the rest, and kind of a moment to take what you need, and then with support start to create very tiny actions of things that you can try, and things that you can start to do to repair and recover. It does not happen overnight, and sometimes we just need that moment to really let ourselves get support, and fully process just the burnout, because it's intense, it's a lot. It took me out of work for almost a year, and there was a lot of financial stress involved in that. So it's super tricky. And I don't have an immediate answer for you because I don't think that that's like, the like the possible thing for you. But I think being where you are and really, really, really deeply moment to moment, just like doing the best that you can and starting small and getting that support. So you're not managing all of it at home or on your own. Yeah, being here is the first great step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Maggie, and thanks for that awesome answer, Allison. Cool. Do we have any other questions? I don't know if anybody. Yeah, Swati.
Hey Nina, thank you for hosting this. Allison, you're great. I'm following you now on Instagram, but are you also on LinkedIn? I'd like to follow up with you for something else.
Yeah. Thank you. I am on LinkedIn. Yes, Alison Midollo. You can look me up. You can find me through the Tulane alumni or just by searching my name. I'm on there. I actually think Tulane just tagged me for today's presentation on LinkedIn. So I'm definitely there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
It was
look forward to
lovely.
connecting.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I will be in your emails after this with just the slides from today, some of the resources, Allison's contact information, and just some other things like that. But I hope everybody has a great rest of their day and practice self-care and all that good stuff. And thank you so much, Allison. This was such a wonderful presentation, and we're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Nina. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for being here. Take care.
Bye.